So welcome to the first of our Koala Wednesday webinars of 2026. I hope that wherever you had your Christmas, New Year's, you had a great time. It feels like just the other day that we were wrapping up the 2025 series of these webinars. And I'm absolutely thrilled that we're getting started quickly because so much has been going on over the last couple of weeks. So many new use cases and scenarios, and I can't wait to share that with you. Today, we're going to be talking about a fantastic, important topic for anyone that's in a leadership role through this year called Claude Skills. And for those of you that have been on any of these webinars before, you will know that we're going to spend the first 15, maybe 30 minutes today talking about the main topic of the week, which is Claude Skills. Then I'm going to touch on the last 7 days of AI in the news. Now, because of the last 7 days, most people were having their New Year's Eve. There's a limited amount that we're going to talk about there, but I've got a couple of items to cover. And then we've got up to 30 minutes for any questions, Q&A that you might have. Now, that doesn't have to be about the topics that we've just talked about. It could be anything. Maybe you have got a top question about how you create your first custom GPT in ChatGPT. So up at the top in your Zoom window, you've got the Q&A panel. So feel free to ask questions and or put it into the chat, and I will keep an eye on that. Don't feel that you need to wait until the Q&A. If you've got questions about Claude Skills as we go through, then feel free to let me know. So Claude Skills, what is Skills? What is Claude? You may not have come across Claude. Claude is an AI chat platform in the same way that Gemini or ChatGPT is a AI chat platform. In fact, Claude, which comes from a company called Anthropic, was set up by a number of the original team members from OpenAI who wanted to go and set up another lab that was perhaps more focused on safety. And as they've developed their platform, when they think about how do they compete with Gemini and how do they compete with OpenAI, what they've really doubled down on is the enterprise, business use cases, developers, knowledge workers, and they are really becoming the driving force in enterprise use cases for AI. And Skills that we're going to talk about today is one of their inventions, and it is really taking what you can do with AI into a new dimension. So what is a skill? Well, the way I think of it, super simply, it's a way of doing things. When I think about our company, how do we create content and publish it onto our website? How do we come up with an idea for a new feature for the product and develop it and deliver it? How do we set our internal goals, our OKRs, and cascade them into different people in the team? How do we hire new team members? Any of these kinds of things that in the past you might have created a standard operating procedure, a process diagram, a workflow, and shoved it in SharePoint or Google Drive for no one to ever look at. These are the kinds of things that make great skills. I kind of split them into two categories. One is just kind of a step-by-step process. Do this, then you do that, then you do that, then you do that. These are the kinds of things that you might have documented as a step-by-step workflow. The other is a bit more sort of an advancement on that, a decision tree. Well, actually, we've got lots of different processes that are all tied together here, but it depends. It depends on this information that we might get from someone. It depends on something that is in a system. And therefore, we've got quite a developed multi-step process there. Now, with all of these skills, and with everything in building prompts and writing your instructions for AI, we think about the intern test. So If I was to give this process, this workflow, this instruction to some random that had just walked through the door of our company, would they be able to do what I want them to do? So if we think about that intern, we'd give them very detailed instructions, which might be this process flow or the standard operating procedure. This is how this work needs to be done. Now you go and read these instructions and you go and follow them. We might give them some templates. Right, here are the forms you need to fill in. Here are some examples that we've done before. Here are all the assets that you're going to need. And then we might give them access to some systems where this work is going to happen or where you're going to get information from in order to be able to do this task. And when we think about skills, we're thinking about exactly the same thing. We've got some instructions, we've got some templates that the AI needs to be able to work with, and we need to give it access to some of our systems to either get information or to push it in that other direction. So I'll come back to a few slides later on, but what I want to do is to bring this into life for you and just show you some examples of some of the skills that we are using. So let me hop out of my slide deck here and then just go into Claude. So like I said, Claude, if you've used ChatGPT, you can use Claude. You can sign up for a free account of Claude. You can have a personal account for, I think, $20 a month, something like that. And it looks very familiar to you. Now, if I go over to my settings here and I go to capabilities, and I'm going to scroll down here, we've got some skills that have been set up in our organization. And the one that I'm going to give you an example of here is our content writer skill. So on the list that I gave you a minute ago, I said, like, in our organization, we create a lot of content. We want to write newsletters that come out every week to our members. We want to write blog articles that go onto the website. We want to write LinkedIn posts. And these all follow a pretty standard format. So I'm going to go up here. This is the instructions that we provide to a skill, just as if I was giving it to a new marketing intern. Whenever I ask you to help me to write a newsletter or write a blog post or create a LinkedIn post, I want you to follow this process. I want you to ask me some questions about what type of newsletter, what's the purpose, who's going to read it. I then want you to draft that newsletter. I want you to use the right sections and bits and pieces that we need in HubSpot. Then what I want you to do is to then go and post that into HubSpot. Same thing with the blog. I want you to ask me these questions. I want you to draft the blog according to these formats. I then want you to save and publish that, in our case, Insanity, which is our CMS, and so on. So that is the skill. Then we've provided this specific skill with a lot of these reference documents that I would have provided to an intern. This is how we write our blogs for SEO purposes. These are the types of questions that I want you to ask me in order to get the right information out of me. These are our style guides for our writing. This is how we represent the Koala brand in everything that we do. And then I talked about assets as well. So all of the templates. So this is what we want a blog to look like, because this is what our content management system requires. We need these fields. We need these things. This is how we want to structure an article. And all of this is stuff that we have determined is how we want our blogs to look like. This is what we want a LinkedIn post to look like. This is what we want a newsletter to look like. And then finally, I talked about access to systems. So scripts. So when we publish our blogs in Sanity, which is our content management system, this is the script that is going to pull in our tokens and it's going to push this into Sanity. When we write a newsletter, we've got some other tokens to push this into HubSpot. And so it automates that process. So like we talked about, instructions, some templates, and then some access to systems. So if I go back over to my chat here, I'm going to pretend that we're going to write a blog post about Claude Skills. Hey, can you use the content writer skill in order to write a blog post about Claude Skills? Now, I didn't need to go to a specific a project or a place. I'm just in my Claude and I'm letting it know I want to use this content writer skill. And it's got access to all of the skills that we've given it. So it's saying here, I'm going to read the content writer skill first to understand the workflow. So firstly, I'm reading the content writer skill. Then he wants to go and read some other documents. So I'm going to give it permission. It's actually searching documents on my laptop, which I'm not quite sure why it's doing that. Probably because I was doing some work a little bit earlier on. What are you doing, Claude? What are you searching for? Just use the files that are in your skill. Yes, exactly, Brian. The joy of a non-deterministic demo. This worked perfectly 10 minutes before. Right, now it's in the skill. So it's reading the writing guidelines, reading the SEO guidelines. Now I've got the context I need. Let me start a conversational interview as the skill prescribes. And so these are the questions that I've got in the skill. What topic or problem are we addressing? Who's searching for this information? What should readers be able to do? And then this will guide me through the next 4 or 5 steps of building out that skill. It will then go and publish that onto the website. So what other kinds of skills what is Claude doing here with all of these different, there we go. So the different types of skills that we're using a lot. So a lot is about preparing conversations and discussions with customers. So that might either be, what is Claude doing here? So things like preparing for meetings, preparing for customer calls. We use Artisan as our outbound SDR platform. And so we're creating all of our campaigns that are going into that external system. We're using it to create all of our webinars, and we're also using it to create our own skills. And so I'm going through a whole process at the moment of every time we've got a bit of work to do, we're thinking, right, would this make a useful skill either for me to use in future or for someone else in the team to use in future? So let me dive back into the deck quickly and show you what goes into making a skill so you can start to think about how you might create one yourself. So a skill is a folder at its top level. So content writer, call preparer, whatever that might be. Now you then have a skill.md file. I'm going to show you an example of this in a minute. But this is the main instruction. So thinking about the intern test, this is what the intern would read to go, right, this is what you need me to do. And it's written in human language. There's no code there at all. It's just saying, this is the process. We do this, then we do that. Maybe if there's some decision matrices in there, it's going to explain the different decisions. Then you may have some scripts. So I showed you in the content writer that I've got a couple of scripts there to push content into HubSpot, to push content into Sanity. You might have scripts for doing things on your desktop or pushing things into Salesforce. This is not required. If you do have some scripts, then you may need some IT support, but also Claude is great at writing these scripts as long as you've got access to the right API tokens. What you more likely are going to have in each of your skills is one or more references and one or more assets. So the references are the supporting documentation for that process. So in our example, the content writer, we're talking about doing blogs, we're talking about doing newsletters, about doing LinkedIn, and we're talking about doing X posts. So rather than having all of that in one skill.md, which gets a bit confusing for Claude, we break them out into individual ones, and Claude will decide which file to use at which time. Secondly, with the assets, these are just blank templates that show Claude what it should be filling in. And so we might have different assets for different formats of content or different parts of the process. So your skill in itself could have anything, 10, 15, 20 different documents in it that make up that overall My Skill folder that you're going to upload into Claude. Now, why is this valuable and why is this different to a custom GPT that you might have built in ChatGPT or a gem that you might have built in Gemini? Well, the key difference is this thing called progressive disclosure. What that means is that Claude only loads up what it needs into its context depending on the specific scenario. So if I've got 10 skills that I've created in my Claude account, then all 10 of those skills are available to Claude. And let me just dive back across here and go back to this example of the content writer. Every skill at the top has got a name, content writer, and then a description. And so whenever you're chatting with Claude, the name and the description is always available to Claude. So this is super important because as you're chatting away, this is what Claude is thinking. Oh, I've got these skills. Should I use it? Should I use it? Having decided, I need to use the content writer skill, either because Charlie has mentioned it or because he said, oh, I want to create a newsletter. Oh, I know I've got that skill. I'm going to go and look at that skill. What it then does is load up the rest of the skill.md file. Let me nip back over here. So now Claude goes, I'm going to go and read the skill.md file, which is going to give me all of the instructions. And it's in our example, right, Charlie's asking about writing a blog post. Okay, now in the skill.md file, it tells me that we've got some references to an interview guide, our writing guidelines, and how to write a blog. So I'm now going to load up the blog reference guide. And then having read the blog reference guide, it's then going to say, right, now I need to go and load up the blog asset, the blog template. And then at the end of the process, now I need to go and put it into Sanity. So I'm going to use that script. And so this is this idea of progressive disclosure, that Claude only accesses the information that Claude needs at the time that it needs to. And that really protects the context of the chat. So Dinara's just asking a good question there. So to get the best out of Claude, we need to learn the art of prompting and prescribe the skills required for a specific task. You're absolutely right, Dinara, that the skill, I'm going to use that word, the skill in this is in, can you lay out in detail what it is that you want to happen and the order in which these things should happen, and maybe some of these decision trees that if someone says this, then they should do that. Doing that really well is what helps a skill to work so effectively. Sorry, I should have just carried on presenting there. Um, So, what is in these skills? The key thing I want you to get from this is that whilst this might look a bit complicated, these are just markdown files. So the skill.md is just written text. The only thing that might be more complicated than a Word document is just up at the top here. You have this it's called YAML, but basically it's this markdown language that goes up at the top to give it a name and a description, maybe a version. But after you've done the dot dot dot, then basically you're just explaining what it is that you want this thing to do. Your references, again, they are just markdown documents. So more detailed instructions, a process is just written. Maybe there's some tables there, but it's just written content. Same thing with the asset, another markdown document, just explaining the different sections of the template that you want the agent to be able to use. The only bit where it might get a little bit more complicated and require some IT support is if you need this skill to have access to other systems. I want to be able to pull something in from CRM. I want to be able to push something out to a content management system. And this is where either you're going to have some IT support. Obviously, we can help as well. Or your good friend Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini is going to help you with writing these basic scripts as well. Now, where can you use these skills? So firstly, let me just talk about Claude. So Anthropic are the guys and girls that came up with skills, and so they are very much in the lead of where you can use skills. So I showed you Claude.ai a minute ago. So you are able to go to Claude, you're able to create a skill, you are able to use skills there. If you are building platforms within your company or for your customers, you can use skills in your products using the API. So if I just switch across again here to the Koala platform, in the Koala platform, you can have a chat about your AI projects, about your initiatives, and we are using skills in the back end here. So when I am asking here to show me all of the initiatives that I'm working on in our company, the skill is going off to go and find this information from the database and then pulling it back into the chat. So we're building more and more skills into our platform that allow the agent to do all of the things that either we could do or the human could do. You can go one step further on than the API and you can build skills into a thing called the Claude Agent SDK, which is where you can start to build your own desktop applications. And if I go, so this is Koala Reserved. This is a desktop application that we use to manage all of our business. All of the work that I do comes through Koala Reserved. And we can build skills in here as well. And so I've got a lot of the skills that I showed you earlier, like the content writer, but I've got things like coaching sessions. I've got skills like doing updates to our investors, planning our OKRs, writing proposals for customers, planning for calls with new customers. Every single task that I find myself doing, I find myself creating a skill for it because I know what I want to do. I've mapped out the process and now I don't want to have to tell the AI that the next time. I just want to say, help me build a proposal and it's going to do that on my behalf. So plenty of different places that you can start to use those skills. So how do you go about building a skill? It's really like to your point, Dinara, it is not a development task. It is not an IT task. It is a consulting task, a business analysis task. So the first thing I'd be thinking about is how do things work today? Is there existing documents? Is there an existing workflow? Are there policies or procedures about how things should be happening? And often what we're finding is that that isn't the case. If I take the example of our proposal writing skill that I just touched on a minute ago, hadn't documented that. Like I had an idea about how we're doing proposals, and maybe I had some really good examples of ones that we'd done in the past. But the first exercise was on actually writing that down. Like, how is it that this is going to work? What systems do we need access to? What information? Having done that, I would then be writing that as a Word document or as a Google Doc in explicit detail and seeing if it would pass the intern test. And what I mean by that is if I was to give that Google Doc to someone else that had randomly walked through the doors of our business, would they be able to build a proposal, write a blog post, write a job description to the level that I want it to? And if not, then go back to writing that Word document or that Google Doc until you've got to that point where they could do that. Because if the intern can't do it, then the agent definitely isn't going to be able to do it. So that's the first sort of step there is making sure that your document is accurate or set of documents. Then you come to creating the skill. Now, Claude have done a great little helper for us all by creating some example skills. So in your example skills here, one of them is a skill creator skill, which is quite meta. But it will use its own skill ability to create a new skill. So if I go here, hey, can you use your skill creator skill to help me create a skill for writing proposals for our clients? And so what this will do is invoke the skill creator skill, and it'll start asking some questions about the type of skill we want to create. I'm reading the skill creator skill. Let me also check the workflow patterns and the output that we need. These are all part of the skill. Now let me check if there's an existing skill that we should use. Let's go and have a look. Excellent. Now let me start asking you about what you want in your proposal writer skill. Now, this is where having all of your research done up front is so powerful, because if you don't know that and you now start answering these questions, what type of proposals? Oh, well, I suppose sometimes we do this. I suppose sometimes we do that. Oh, but except on Wednesdays when we do it like this, then actually Claude's not going to be able to do a great job of building out your skill. So much better that right now you could click upload and go, hey, Claude, here is everything you need. I've got the description of the process. I've got a description of the systems that we need to use. I've got a description of the decision points. Claude's going to be much better able to build you a great skill. So I won't go through that process, but just know the skill creator skill is your friend to help you on that journey. Now, I talked a minute ago about ways that you can use skills and said Claude is the best place to use these skills. And absolutely right. They invented it and they are by far in the lead of how you use skills. But just before Christmas, they actually published what they call Agent Skills as an open standard. Um, at its heart, skills is not code or technology. It's just a way of an LLM treating this folder. And so they've published that. I believe they've done that in that if everyone uses skills, then it's going to help more people get more benefit out of using Claude. So you can go to agentskills.io, which I've got open here. And agentskills.io, it'll explain to you what are skills, how they work, what the skill MD file looks like. And then, not that it's so useful to you, more details about the specification and how these skills are integrated. Now, the reason why I mention that is that if your company has rolled out a ChatGPT, or you are a Google Workspace company and you've got Gemini, you might be thinking, well, they've all got these skills over on Claude. What am I going to do? Well, my belief is that you are going to see skills arrive in Gemini and in ChatGPT imminently. OpenAI have already started rolling it out into their development platform, and so I'd expect to see it arrive in ChatGPT before too long. So it's worth learning about these. If you don't have access to Claude, maybe spinning up a free account or a $25 personal account and practicing with skills. The people that figure this out are going to have a express elevator through this year. I'm absolutely confident of it. So that brings us to the end of talking about our Claude skills. We'll send out a few links and bits and pieces to help you as you start following up on that after this. I've now got just a couple of things to talk about AI in the news, just because it literally was in the news last night as I was watching the BBC News. Just before Christmas, oh no, just after Christmas, XAI, which is the AI platform from Elon Musk, he has a platform called Grok, and they launched their business and enterprise packages. And so, big push to be one of the four sort of leading enterprise vendors for AI. Up until now, since Grok has been launched, I think it's been sort of perceived as a bit of a fly by the seat of their pants, just build, 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 and not too sure about maybe the safety or the regulation side of things. So it was interesting to see in December that they go, right, no, actually, we're all in on the enterprise. We're launching our business and enterprise plans. But in the last week or so, they've upgraded their image tool in the platform. And it's come to light that actually, when you upload pictures of real humans, you can then digitally re-render those images. And this is what was on the BBC News last night, where it had come to light that a number of people had adult images created off their own real images. And so I think I haven't got a point to make here other than I think Grok and X have got a long way to go in order to build trust in the enterprise before people start using them for real world work and customer work and employee work. But still one to keep in the back of your mind as you're thinking about these leading vendors that are out there. I'm just picking up a question I can see here from Peter. Hey, Pete, hope you're well. Hi, Charlie. Do you think skills in GPT will supplement or replace custom GPTs? And do you think they will be able to interact with current custom GPTs? A really great question. And I think that skills have become what GPTs should have been done if OpenAI had continued to invest in them. When custom GPTs were first launched, they held a lot of promise, and they still do hold a lot of promise, but they've not invested in them or developed them significantly in the last couple of quarters. So I think whether they enhance GPTs with skills or whether skills replace GPTs, I would imagine that skills become the main interface. And a couple of reasons for that. One is, like I showed you earlier, you don't need to go to a skill to say, can I use this skill? You just start chatting. I'm trying to write a blog post. Oh, I've got a blog post skill. I'm going to use that. Whereas at the moment, you have to go to a GPT to say, can I do this or not? The other thing that I think that skills will replace these GPTs is that a GPT is almost like a big bucket. You put everything in it, 20 files, you give it some instructions, and you kind of hope for the best. But there isn't this progressive disclosure of loading up the next part of the process, the next part of the process to build these quite custom workflows. So I think it's going to be a really interesting thing for OpenAI because they are hanging on Anthropic's coattails quite a bit. Um, uh, Three of the last big releases that Anthropic have done, OpenAI have then had to sort of pick up and replicate. So I think there's going to be some decisions to be had at OpenAI about how they regain the lead in terms of the R&D pipeline. And Dinara's got another good question. I don't think I know the answer to this, but can you share your thoughts on the big plant being built in Texas related to AI data centers? Anything you may know or share? I'm not sure about the specifics of that. I'll take a look. I know that all of these labs are building mega data centers. I don't know if you're talking about Stargate, which is the big OpenAI one. XAI are building massive data centers. They're all at it. They need more and more data centers. Yeah, it is Stargate. They need more power. They need more power. They're investing so much into all of these data centers. Who knows where it is going to end? What I do know is that all of these data centers and the technology is becoming way more efficient. The cost of inference, the cost of having a chat with ChatGPT or with Grok or Claude is going down, down, down so much. So the AI that you're using today is the best, or sorry, I should say the worst that it will ever be. And it's also the most expensive that it will ever be. It's just getting cheaper and cheaper and more cost effective. But they are preparing for the huge amount of scale that is going to be required as more and more workloads get moved onto AI. And so with that, I did a little bit more time on skills, and we had a little bit of a later start. My apologies for that. But we have got a bit of time for any Q&A. I've got a couple of questions that are coming up in the client conversations that I'm having, but feel free to keep asking any questions as they come. One topic that came up yesterday. You'll know that I only talk to AI now. I just don't type anymore. I use a tool called Whisper Flow, and I just hit my function key and I talk to AI and I tell it what I want. And I do that because I find it a lot easier to pass a large amount of context over to these AI tools, much faster than I could type. But the conversation I was having yesterday was with someone who, quite openly said, to be honest, I'm not really a big talker to humans, let alone to AI. I tend to be quite, keep myself to myself. Even if I was going to talk, I'd probably share a lot less than you are, Charlie, talking. And it did get me thinking about how I can imagine a bit of an unintentional divide being created as we go through this year. The reality is that these tools, they thrive on context and the more information you can give them. And so if you can talk to an AI for 5 minutes and give it all of the details of what you want, it will give you a fantastic response. If you say, can you just build me a proposal? You will get a bad response or not as good response. So there is going to be a greater opportunity for people that can get over the talking hurdle to their tools. I really believe it. And if you can't get over the talking hurdle, then I think skills, way that maybe I'm not going to talk, but I am earlier on going to write in great detail what needs to happen is going to help. But really do think about getting over that talking hurdle as quickly as possible. And then the other question that I've got here is how do I pick what should be a skill? And as you're looking at all of the work that you've got ahead of you today, this week, this month, you might be thinking, right, well, what should I skillify and what do I keep as just sort of manual or offline? I think for me, I talk about always the ICE framework, which comes from product development, and it stands for I is for impact, the C is for confidence, and the E is for ease of implementation. And we score each of those out of 10. So the impact, okay, if I turn this into a skill, will it be impactful? So if I think about our content writer skill, is that impactful? It is. We're creating a huge amount of content, and this skill is now making that so simple for us to do. It's very, very impactful, and the quality and consistent of what we're creating is really valuable. Then I think about the confidence. How confident am I that I can create this skill? Well, if I've got it all documented and I've got a process and I've got access to the right systems, then yeah, I'm confident. As long as I can write, then I can write the skill. And then finally, the ease of implementation. So how easy is it going to be to implement this? Well, here I would say that as long as you have not got very complex integrations and scripts, then your ease of implementation is going to be super, super easy. So if you are creating proposals, if you are planning for meetings, if you're building job descriptions, these are going to be super easy. So I think about those three when you're thinking about which skills to create: impact, confidence, and ease of implementation. Now, a couple of other questions come in here. So Sarah, hi Sarah, thanks for joining. From experience, is there material benefit to using coding language prompts over using natural language? Is well formatted enough for consistent high quality output? Yeah, really good question. And I'll give you, I'm just trying to think of a good way of giving an example of this. I haven't got a quick one to show you, but when people are creating prompts for images, you may have seen some of these JSON style prompts. I'll share some in the notes after this. But where instead of describing, oh, can you create me an image of a family lying on a beach and the sun's just going down? It's much more like a coding format of notation. That can give a more specific output, but what I think you lose with a lot of that is just the ability to say what's on your mind. And for anyone that's not a developer, suddenly you've got this quite a big barrier to entry. If like, oh, how do I create this JSON script for my prompt? So I would certainly for most business users, I would just opt for saying what you feel. I go back to the intern test. If I gave this document to a random that walked through the door, could they follow my instructions? And if I've got a sort of wide-ranging, rambling document, it's not very specific, it hasn't got any of those decision gates, maybe no tables, then it's going to be difficult for that person to understand that long document. So I would tend to put a bit more structure in it, but definitely focus on natural language over trying to do anything more complicated. Question from Stuart. We've got a couple more minutes, so I can keep going, which is great. I've seen the concept of the product requirements document used as a template for conversing with AI. What's your view? Well, we're using skills for creating product requirement documents in Claude Code, which is what we're using to develop the platform. And absolutely, we define the product requirement template. We provided instructions to the skill about how to interview us about those product requirements. And we provided instructions about how to take that product requirement document and put it into the plan that the coding agent is going to follow. So PRDs, or product requirements, is a great use case for skills. Absolutely. Victoria, hi, thanks for joining. Can you include links to Salesforce reports so that presentations can be generated with weekly metrics? You absolutely can. And this takes us back to the slight niggly nightmare I had when I was doing my demo earlier, is that Claude Desktop can have access to any other systems that you can access on your own laptop. And therefore, you can give it links and it can follow those links and it can do, depending on how you set it up and the permissions you've given it, it can do things with those the data that you've got there. So there's a bit of nuance to the question as to whether you give them access to the reports or actually to the underlying data. But absolutely. And I'll give you a couple of specific examples, Victoria, in terms of the skills that we're using. I've given a skill access to Zero, which is our financial platform. And I've given the skill access to HubSpot, which is our CRM platform. And I can ask questions about our cash flow forecast. And it can go off and look at Zero and look at invoices and cash in the bank and everything like that. It can then go off and look at HubSpot and look at open opportunities by stage. And it can come back to me with a very well thought through, following our skill, well thought through cash flow forecast based on what is in the pipeline. So absolutely. And this, again, as I come to sort of wrapping up with a minute or so to go, I know I've said a number of times the intern test, but do you know what? This is like the best place to start, because if you can describe it to a human, go and click on that Salesforce report, drill down on this filter, that's what you want to look at, then you can describe it to a skill and we can get Claude, or in the future, ChatGPT or Gemini to handle it. So with that, thank you so much, and especially for everyone holding on for those first sort of 9 minutes while we were trying to work out the new Zoom platform. I really appreciate your understanding there. Next week, we're going to be diving into what I gave you a little taster for earlier on, which is the new Koala platform. We have rolled out you could call it a kind of an AI project management platform that is going to allow you to manage your AI initiatives at scale across your organization, all built on Claude. And we look forward to showing you how you can scale this out to your teams, to log new AI ideas and to manage them through the process using Claude Skills at the heart of it. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll speak to you soon.